What if I told you that one of the most terrifying monsters in the world, the Filipino Aswang, the shape-shifting, baby-eating, viscera-sucking ghoul of your nightmares, wasn't born from folklore, but from a calculated smear campaign? We all think we know the story of this horrifying creature, but the truth is so much wilder, so much more political, and honestly, way scarier than any monster story. Was the Aswang a real demon, or was it a brilliant piece of propaganda designed to destroy a culture from the inside out? The answer is hiding in plain sight in history books, not horror movies. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll never see the Aswang or history the same way again. Alright, so picture this. It's the 1400s in the islands we now call the Philippines. There's no Manila traffic, no internet drama, just hundreds of distinct, thriving communities. Life revolves around the village, the spirits of the ancestors, and the spirits of nature. And at the absolute center of this world, the Babaylan. Now, the Babaylan weren't just priestesses. That's like calling a smartphone just a calculator. They were the doctors, the scientists, the historians, and the spiritual guides all rolled into one. Mostly women, they were the keepers of their people's stories and wisdom. If you were sick, you went to the Babaylan. If the harvest was failing, you went to the Babaylan. They could read the stars, brew medicine from jungle plants, and even, it was believed, speak to the other side. They were, without a doubt, the most powerful and respected figures in their society. A total aha moment, right? The most powerful person in the village was often a woman. But what happens when a new power arrives, one that sees that influence not as a gift, but as a threat? In 1521, everything changed. Ferdinand Magellan sails into the picture, and he doesn't come alone. He brings with him soldiers, armed with steel and gunpowder, and friars armed with a new god. The Spanish had a simple, brutal goal: conquest. They wanted gold, spices, and souls, and they were willing to do anything to get them. But they immediately ran into a huge problem. How do you control millions of people scattered across thousands of islands who already have a perfectly good system? They couldn't just fight everyone. It was impossible. Their real challenge wasn't a military one. It was a cultural one. Their biggest obstacle was the Babaylan. Think about it. The Spanish friars would show up and say, "Hey, forget your nature spirits and your ancestors. You need to worship our god." And the villagers would just turn and look at their Babaylan, who would be like, we're good. The people trusted the Babaylan. Their influence was the glue holding their society together. So the Spanish realized they couldn't just replace the Babaylan, they had to destroy her. But how do you destroy someone that everyone loves and respects? You don't kill her, you turn her into a monster. And this is where our story really begins. The story of how a revered healer was twisted into a horrifying, blood-sucking demon. It's a masterclass in psychological warfare. Hey, real quick, if you find this kind of deep dive into the hidden corners of history interesting, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. We're all about uncovering the stories that have been buried or twisted. Your support helps us keep digging. Thanks, you're awesome. Now back to the master plan. So, the Spanish friars had a strategy, and it was diabolically brilliant. It was a 3-step plan to systematically dismantle the Babaylan's power and replace it with their own. First, they started with rebranding. Simple but effective. They watched the local rituals. The Babaylan would offer gifts to the spirits: food, drink, sometimes a chicken or a pig. To the locals, this was a sign of respect, of giving back to the spirits of the land. But the friars, they saw something else. They saw a pagan sacrifice. They saw devil worship. They took every single practice and twisted it. The sacred chants of the Babaylan, that became a witch's incantation. The herbal medicine she made, potions made with demonic power. Her ability to communicate with the spirit world, proof that she was in league with Satan. Bam! In one move, they framed a respected spiritual leader as an agent of pure evil. It was a small shift in perspective, but it planted a seed of doubt. But a seed of doubt isn't enough. They needed to make the fear real. So they moved on to step 2, appropriation and fear-mongering. The Spanish were smart. They knew they couldn't just erase the local beliefs overnight, so they hijacked them. They noticed the islanders had a deep respect for a host of nature spirits and deities, the Dewata. So the friar said, "Oh, your powerful forest spirit? That's actually a demon. Your river god? Another demon. But don't worry, we have saints who can protect you from these evils." They built their churches on top of sacred Babaylan sites. They replaced local idols with crucifixes and statues of the Virgin Mary. They were literally pasting their religion over the old one. And then they took the existing folklore about malevolent spirits and cranked it up to 11. Pre-colonial Filipinos already had stories of ghouls and trickster spirits, but these were usually specific to a certain place, like a haunted tree or a dark cave. The Spanish took all these scattered local fears and consolidated them. They collected all the scariest attributes, shape-shifting, flying, eating human organs, preying on pregnant women, and merged them into one ultimate super monster. They gave it a name that was already associated with outcasts, the Aswang. This is the moment of creation. The Aswang, as we know it today, wasn't born in a spooky forest. It was born in a committee meeting of propagandists. And this new monster had one key feature. It looked just like a normal person during the day. It could be your neighbor, it could be your friend, or it could be the local Babaylan who refuses to convert to Christianity. See what they did there? Suddenly, the woman everyone trusted was a potential monster hiding in plain sight. But that still leaves the biggest question. How did they make people actually believe it? That brings us to the final and most brutal step: persecution. Once the propaganda was in place, the friars began to hunt. Any Babaylan who resisted conversion, who continued her traditional practices, was publicly accused of being an Aswang. This wasn't just a verbal accusation. This was a death sentence. The Spanish Inquisition, famous in Europe, found a new tropical hunting ground. They used a legal document called Las Leyes de Indias, the Laws of the Indies, which basically gave them the authority to punish anyone practicing their native religion. Historical records from friars like Father Juan de Plasencia and Father Francisco de San Antonio explicitly detail these witch classifications. They documented how they identified and dealt with those who practiced what they called brujeria, or witchcraft. Imagine the sheer terror. Your spiritual leader, your doctor, the person you've trusted your entire life, is dragged into the village square accused of being a baby-eating monster and then tortured or executed based on evidence from Spanish law. After you see that happen a few times, what are you gonna do? You're gonna keep your head down. You're gonna go to church and you're gonna start believing the stories because it's safer to believe than to be the next one accused. The fear became the ultimate tool of control. They had successfully turned the community against its own protector. So, did it work? Oh, it worked better than they could ever imagine. The Aswang became the perfect boogeyman. For 400 years, the story was told and retold. It became a tool not just for the Spanish, but for the new Filipino elite. and even for parents to scare their kids into behaving. The myth took on a life of its own, embedding itself so deeply into the culture that its origins were completely forgotten. The Babaylan, once the pillar of society, was either eliminated or forced into hiding, their knowledge of herbal medicine, astronomy, and history labeled as witchcraft and largely lost. The spiritual leadership role was taken over by male Catholic priests. The powerful central role of women in pre-colonial society was systematically erased and replaced with a patriarchal European model. The ultimate aha moment, and most tragic one, is realizing the monster wasn't the Aswang. The monster was the propaganda that created it. This process is called demonization. It's a classic tactic of colonization used all over the world. You take a powerful cultural figure from the group you want to control, and you systematically turn them into a symbol of evil in the public imagination. In Europe, they did it to pagan priestesses, calling them witches. In the Americas, they did it to Native American shamans. And in the Philippines, they did it to the Babaylan, creating one of the most enduring monsters in global folklore. So, what's the lesson here? It's that the most powerful monsters aren't the ones with claws and fangs. They're the ones whispered in our ears, the stories designed to make us fear and hate our own. The Aswang is a terrifying monster for sure, but the true horror lies in the fact that its story was a weapon used to conquer a people by turning them against themselves. It's a chilling reminder to always ask, who benefits from this story? Who is being made into a monster, and why? The myth of the Aswang isn't just a spooky tale. It's a ghost of a forgotten history, a scar left by colonization that still haunts the Philippines to this day. And now you know the truth behind the monster. What do you think? Does knowing the history change how you see the Aswang? Were there similar stories or figures in your own culture that got the monster treatment? Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one. This stuff is endlessly fascinating. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories that peel back the layers of history, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It makes a huge difference. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.